Chapter 1. Tell your father to go to hell. Try it. It's a rotten hard thing to do, evening if he deserves it. Merrill Landon did. He was an out-and-out bastard, but like most of the breed, he didn't know it. He said he was a good father, sensible, firm, and just. He said everything he did was for Laura's own good. He took her opposition for a sign that he was right, and the more she'd opposed him, the righter he swore he was. Like he was a bastard. Laura could have told you that, but she couldn't tell him, because he was her father. That was why she ran out on him, left him high, dry, and sputtering in his plush Chicago apartment with only his job to console him, and never told him where she went, never told him why, never told him of the angry agony of her nights, spent torching for a love gone wrong. Never mentioned his straight-laced bitter version of fatherly affection that hurt her more than his fits of temper. He never kissed her. He never touched her. He only told her, "No, Laura, and you're wrong, as usual, and can't you do it right for once?" She had taken it all her life, but it was the worst the year after she left school. It was a year of confinement in luxury, of tightly controlled resentment, of soul-searching, and one rainy night, when he was out at a press dinner, she packed a small bag and went to Union Station. She bought a ticket to New York City. She could never be free from herself, but she could be free from her father, and at the moment that mattered the most. So she rode out of the big city, wet and cold with its January gloss, and left behind Merrill Landon, her father. The man in her life, the only man in her life. The only man she ever seriously tried to love. All she wanted from New York was a job, a place to live, a friend or two. As long as she won them herself, without her father's help, she would be happy. Much happier than when she had been surrounded with comfortable leather chairs, sheathed in sleek fine clothes, smelling like an expensive rose. In school Laura had studied journalism. She did it to avoid a showdown with Merrill Landon. He had always taken it for granted that she would follow his profession, just as if she were a doting son anxious to imitate a successful father. She accepted his tyranny quietly, but with a corrosive resentment that he was unaware of. There were times when she hated him so actively for making a slave of her that he saw it and said, "Laura, for Christ's sake, don't pout at me. Snap out of it. Act your age." Laura was more afraid of loving Landon than leaving him. She was afraid the yearning in her would flare someday, when he gave her one of his rare smiles, when he said, "Klein says you're learning fast. Good girl," and her knees went weak, but he saved her by quickly adding with embarrassed sarcasm, "But you messed up the water tower assignment. Jesus, I can never count on you, can I?" When things became intolerable, she left him at last with no showdown at all. She had considered going in to tell him about it, walking into the library where he was working, where she was expressly forbidden to go in the evenings, and saying, "Father, I'm leaving you. I'm going to New York. I can't stand it here anymore." He would have been brilliantly sarcastic. He would have described her to herself in terms so exaggerated that she would see herself as a grotesque mistake of nature, a freak in a funhouse mirror. He was not above such abuse. He had done it to her a few times before. Once, when she was very young and hadn't learned to tiptoe around his temper yet, and once when she quit school. Not all his threats and tantrums could send her back to school, however. There was a ghost lurking there that Laura could never face, that Landon knew nothing about. He was forced to let her stay at home, but he committed her to journalism at once and made her work on his paper with one of his assistants. Evening Laura was surprised when she was able to resist him about returning to school. She wouldn't have thought she could stick it out, especially when he roared at her, "Why, why, answer me, you stubborn little bitch," and smashed an ashtray at her feet. She could not, tell him why. It took all her courage to admit it evening to herself. She simply said, "I won't go back, Father." "Why?" "I won't." "Why?" It was menacing this time. "I won't go back." In the end he swore at her and hurt her with the same ugly, irrelevant argument he always used when she resisted him. You know why you're alive today, don't you? Because I saved you. I dragged you out of the water and let your mother drown. And your brother. I could only save one, and it was you I saved. God, what a mistake. My son, my wife. And he would turn away, groaning. You weren't trying to save me, Father, she said once. You just grabbed the nearest one and swam for shore. You screamed at Mother to save Rod and then you dragged me to shore. It's a miracle you saved evening me. You see, I remember it too. I remember it very well. He turned a pale, furious face to her. You dare to tell me what you remember? You silly little white-faced girl. You don't remember anything? Don't tell me what you remember. So she chose a night when he was out and left him without a word, at the start of an unfriendly January, and came to New York. Her first thought was to try to get work on one of the giant dailies. With her experience, surely they could find something for her. But then she realized her father was too well known in journalism circles. She hated the thoughts of his finding her. He had struck her more than once, and his anger with her sometimes reached such heights that she trembled in terror, expecting him to brutalize her. But it never went that far. No, newspapers were out. Magazines were out. It would have to be something completely divorced from the world of journalism. She studied the want ads for weeks. She tried to land a job as receptionist with a foreign airline, but her French was too poor. Then, after about 2 weeks, she found a small ad for a replacement secretary to a prominent radiologist, someone with experience preferred. It appealed to her, without her exactly knowing why. She didn't really suppose she had much of a chance of getting it, and it was silly to try. Who wanted a temporary job? Most girls were supposed to want security. But Laura wasn't like most girls. She was like damn few girls. In fact, she was a loner, strange, dream-ridden, mildly neurotic, curiously interesting, like somebody who has a secret. The next morning she was in the office of Dr. Hollingsworth, talking to his secretary. The secretary, a tremendously tall girl with big bones, a friendly face, and a sort of uncomfortable femininity, liked her right away. I'm Jean Bergman, she said. Come on in and sit down. Doctor Hollingsworth isn't here yet. He gets in at 9. Laura introduced herself and said she'd like to have the job. She was a hard worker. Jean was disposed to believe her, on a hunch. It was one of those lucky breaks. I've talked to some other girls, she said, but nobody seems to have had any experience. The girls with training want permanent jobs, so I guess I'll just have to find a bright beginner. Laura smiled at her. She spoke as if it was settled. The job will last till June 1st, Laura, Jean went on. I'll be gone 2 months. We'll spend the time till then teaching you the routine. Sarah will be coming in a minute. She's the other secretary. There'll be plenty for the 3 of us. She paused, eyeing Laura critically. Well, do you think you'd like a crack at it? Yes, I would. Laura felt her heart lighten. Okay. Jean smiled. I'm a trusting soul. You strike me as the efficient type. Of course, I'll have to introduce you to Dr. Hollingsworth. You understand. Now don't let me down, Laura. I won't. Thanks, Jean. You may make yourself indispensable, you know, Jean said. I mean, they really need 3 girls around here. If they like you well enough, well, maybe they'll keep you on in June. It's just a chance, don't count on it. Laura felt really worthwhile for the first time since she left home. She had never considered turning back, but there had been moments when the barren want ads discouraged her and the wet biting weather dragged her spirits down. Now, the sun was shining through the rain. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It turned out to be a fine office to work in. Doctors have a crazy sense of humor and they are often tolerant. Dr. Hollingsworth was small and quiet, quite dignified but tender-hearted. He had 2 young assistants, Dr. Carstens and Dr. Hagstrom. They were both fresh from medical school, pleasant young men. Carstens was married, but with a wildly roving eye. Every female patient fascinated him, evening, if he saw no more than her lungs. Hagstrom had a permanent girlfriend named Rosie with whom he conducted endless conversations on the phone. Both were devoted to Dr. Hollingsworth and considered themselves lucky to be with him. Laura fell into the routine rapidly. She was much slower than the other girls at translating the mumbo-jumbo on the dictaphone at first. She spent nearly half the time looking up terms in the medical dictionary and the rest beating the typewriter. The problem of finding a place to live before the hotel bills broke her was urgent. She discovered in a hurry, like most newcomers to New York, that it was a real struggle to find a decent apartment at a decent price. She asked Jean about it. "I'm stuck," she said. "Where do people live in this town? What's the matter with me?" Jean said, "I should have asked you if you had a place. I know a girl who's looking for a roommate. The one she had just got hitched. I'll call her." Later she told Laura, "I talked to her. She says a couple of gals have already asked her, but to call if you want to. She hasn't made up her mind yet. She's a doll. You'll like her. Here's her number." "What's her name?" "Marcy Prophet." "Mrs. Prophet." She laughed at Laura's consternation. "She's divorced," she said. Laura called at once. "I'm at West End and 101st, Marcy said when Laura got her. Her voice was low and appealing. Laura hoped she looked like she sounded. "The penthouse," Marcy said. "It's not locked. You have to walk up the last flight." "A penthouse," Laura said, taken aback. Jean said, "It's not as fancy as it sounds," Marcy laughed. "In fact, it's falling apart. That's how I can afford it. But it has a wonderful view. Come over tonight. I'll give you some dinner. I may be late, though, so I'll leave a key for you under the doormat." "Thanks, Marcy. I'd like to." Laura wondered, when she hung up, if Marcy's hospitality was always so impulsive. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It was dark and getting windy when Laura got off the subway at 99th Street. She walked the 2 blocks up Broadway to 101st, holding her coat collar close around her throat. The apartment building was a block off Broadway, up a hill at the corner of West End Avenue. It had been a chic address once, some years ago, when West End was an exclusive neighborhood, but it was deteriorating now, quietly, almost inconspicuously, slipping into the hands of ordinary people, families with lots of kids and not much money, students, working girls, and the haute monde was quietly slipping out and heading for the other side of town. Laura entered the vestibule. It looked like the reception hall in a medieval fort. The only light came from a small bare bulb on a desk in one corner. The whole hall was full of heavy shadows. Laura found the elevator tucked into a corner and pressed the button. She swung slowly around on her heels to look at the hall while she waited. It gave her the shivers. She climbed into the elevator with misgivings. It looked well used and little cleaned. There was a paper sticker plastered on the wall above the button panel saying that it had passed inspection until June of that year. Laura looked it up and down and wondered if it would last till June. She reached the 12th and last floor and walked out into a hall. To the right of the elevator she found a pair of swinging doors, and beyond them a steel staircase. She climbed the stairs, her heels ringing, and found herself in a short dark hall with 2 doors in it, one to the penthouse, one to the roof. Laura went out on the roof for a look. She walked over the red tiling toward a stone griffin carved on the railing and looked over it to the city. Below her, around her on all sides, sparkled New York. It honked and shouted down there. It murmured and sighed. It blinked and glittered like a gorgeous whore waiting to be conquered. Laura breathed deep and smiled secretly at it. She could live with a dank front hall and patched up elevator for a view like this. It was 10 minutes before she went into the dark corridor again and found the penthouse door. She rang twice, and when there was no answer, she fumbled in the darkness for the key under the mat and unlocked the door. It opened into an unlit living room. Laura went in, shut the door behind her, and stumbled around looking for a light switch. She knocked something off a table and heard it break before she discovered a lamp in a far corner and pulled the cord. The room was small and furnished with bamboo furniture, a couch, an easy chair, a round cocktail table. There was a console radio against one wall, and books were lying around on the floor and furniture. There were a couple of loaded ashtrays, and one lay shattered on the floor, Laura's fault. Laura found the switch in the kitchen. It was long and narrow, painted a garish yellow. Beyond that was the bedroom, with 2 beds and 2 dressers jammed into it, and some shoes and underwear scattered around. It was bright blue, with 2 big windows opening onto the roof. The bathroom was enormous, almost as big as the bedroom and the same noisy yellow as the kitchen. All the pipes were exposed, and the plumbing looked as if it were full of bugs. Laura walked back into the living room and sat down stiffly. She began to have serious misgivings. This was no place for a civilized girl to live. Surely in this tremendous city there was an apartment for a girl that didn't have an astronomical rent, and where she could eat in private out of cans. Suddenly the door burst open and Marcy came in, and Laura forgot her discomfort. Marcy smiled. "I'm Marcy. Hi." Laura cursed the shyness that tied knots in her tongue. "How do you like this crazy little palace?" Marcy said, gesturing grandly around her. "It's very nice." Marcy laughed, and Laura was struck with the sweet perfection of her features. Her lips were full and finely balanced, her nose was of medium length and dainty, hair with true gold hue that no peroxide can imitate framed her face and hung nearly to her shoulders. She had the lucky black lashes and eyebrows that sometimes happen to blondes and high color in her cheeks. She was, in short, a lovely-looking girl. Laura smiled at her. "It's a hole," said Marcy. "Don't be polite. The rent is $130 a month." Laura gasped. "I know, it sounds awful, but that's only $65 apiece. And it includes maid service, so-called. The maid doesn't pick up a damn thing." "Did you see the rest of the place?" Laura nodded. Discouraged, a little, Laura followed Marcy awkwardly into the kitchen. "You'd better know the worst right off," Marcy went on. "3 other girls have called wanting to share this place with me." Laura's incredulous face made her laugh. "It's not that the place is irresistible," she explained. "It's just that apartments are hard to get in this town. Sit down, Laura." Laura obeyed her, finding a chair at the kitchen table, while Marcy fussed at the stove. "Have you been here long?" "3 weeks." "Where did you come from?" "Chicago." "Oh, that place. I was there once with Burr. He was my husband." "Oh," Laura said softly, almost sympathetically, as if Marcy had announced his demise. "Well, don't put on a long face," Marcy said with a sudden laugh. "He's divorced, not dead. It was final last November." Her face became serious again, and she gave Laura a plate of vegetables and hamburger. "He's very nice to know," Marcy mused. "But hell to live with." "Laura, do you cook?" "I can't boil water." "Well, I can do that much." Marcy lapsed into silence then, her burst of charming vitality spent. She ate quietly, as if unaware of Laura's presence, gazing at the tablecloth and forking her food up mechanically. She had withdrawn suddenly and soundlessly into a private corner, where fatigue and secret thoughts absorbed her. Laura felt more awkward than ever. She was afraid to interrupt Marcy's reverie, but like all shy people she was convinced that if you can just keep the other person talking everything will be all right. It was an urge she couldn't resist. After a few false starts she said, "Have you been in New York long, Marcy?" Marcy looked at her, mildly surprised to find her still there. "Yes, since we were married." She spoke absently, turning to her plate. "When was that?" 3 years ago." She came suddenly back to the present. "Laura, did you ever love a man and hate him at the same time?" Laura was nonplussed. This was more than she counted on. "Well, I don't know exactly." She wasn't sure if she had ever loved Merrill Landon. She knew well enough how she hated him. "I shouldn't throw my problems in your face like that before you get your dinner down," Marcy smiled. She reached out and gave Laura's arm a pat that made Laura jump a little. It's just that that damn character proposed to me again today. I don't know what to do with him. I thought maybe you could give me some advice. Have you ever been married? Me? No, said Laura emphatically, as if it were a slightly lewd suggestion. Who is that character? Burr, my ex-husband. He wants to marry you again? It seemed unnatural to Laura. If the marriage were legally over, physically over, emotionally over, why beat the carcass? Yes, the fool. Marcy smiled ruefully. He's a very persuasive fool, though. Marcy was one of those people with the rare gift of intimacy. You knew her a few minutes, an hour, a couple of days, and you discovered to your surprise that you felt close to her. It wasn't the personal revelations she couldn't help making, as much as it was her look, her questions that asked for Laura's help. Laura felt curiously like an expert on marital affairs, and it was so ridiculous that she smiled. What's funny? Marcy asked. You make me feel like Miss Lonely Hearts or something, Laura said. Marcy laughed. You don't have to give me advice, Laura, just because I ask for it. I guess you can't anyway if you're single, but just for the hell of it. What would you do if a decent, honorable sort of ex-husband chased you like a demon and swore he'd kill you if you went out with anybody else? I'd send him to a clinic. Marcy shook her head. He's healthy. If I didn't know we'd quarrel 24 hours a day, I'd marry him tomorrow. She sighed. I almost said yes to him today. What's the matter with me? I'm not a dope, or am I? You don't look like one, Laura said uncomfortably. Poor Laura. Marcy laughed. I'm embarrassing you to tears. You make a good listening post. Come on, finish your hamburger. It didn't kill me. When they cleared up the dishes, Marcy turned on the tap in the sink. A thin, hesitant stream of water was called up after some pitiful groaning from the pipes. Marcy kicked a pipe under the sink. It's enough to drive you wild, she exclaimed. Some nights you have to wait around till the cows come home before there's enough to wash anything in. Oh, here it comes. With a scream, the pipes vomited steaming water. Marcy looked at Laura, and the little smile on her face widened. Suddenly they were laughing hilariously. Laura felt the laughter soothing and tickling her tight muscles, making her relax. It hates me, Marcy said to the sink, grasping the faucets and rattling them furiously. The stream came to an abrupt halt. She turned to Laura again. Do you think you can stand it? She said. I think I can. Laura knew now why she wanted to move in, but she was ready to ignore the reason. She would bury it, forget it. It had no place in her world any more, she would say to herself, and half believe that she was moving in simply because apartments were hard to find, because she could pay the rent on this one, because she and Marcy were congenial. Period. What's your job like? She asked Marcy casually. I'm supposed to be a typist receptionist, Marcy said, but I could never type very well. Mr. Marquardt doesn't care, though. He just told me to make a good impression on his customers and don't chew gum on the job. I told him that would be a cinch, and he said, "You're hired." She laughed. He's nuts, but it's a great job. I just sit around most of the day. With a face like that, I'm not surprised, Laura thought. It gave her a bad feeling. Laura worked hard. She tried hard at anything she did. It was part of her nature. Either you did a thing the whole way or you didn't do it at all. It was part of Meryl Landon's code that had rubbed off on her. It made her a little jealous to hear this lovely girl brushing idly over a comfortable job that asked almost nothing of her. Marcy would not have understood Laura's feelings at all. You'll get along fine with Burr, Marcy said, drying her hands on a towel. He's always reading something. Those are his books in there. She waved a hand toward the living room. He brings them over in hopes that I'll improve my mind. She made a face and Laura smiled at her. Does he come over a lot? Laura asked. Yes, but don't worry. He's harmless. He talks like Hamlet sometimes, gloomy, I mean, but he's nice to dogs and children. He has a parakeet, too. I always think a man who has a parakeet can't be very vicious. Besides, I lived with him for 2 years, and the worst he ever did to me was spank me one time. We shouted at each other constantly, but we didn't hit each other. Sounds restful, Laura said. Marcy laughed and went into the bedroom. See if you think you'll have enough room in here, she called to Laura, who followed her slowly. It's pretty crowded, but the bathroom makes up for it. We could fence it off and make an extra room of it if we wanted to. Laura sat down on one of the beds. I like it fine, Marcy, she said. I'd like to move in, if you think we'd get along. She looked at her lap, confused. She never said these things right. Marcy laughed good-naturedly and flopped on the bed beside Laura, on her stomach. Laura had to twist around to see her. Oh, I can get along with anybody, she said. Evening you. I'll bet you're terribly hard to get along with. I don't think so. I mean, she never knew when she was being teased until she had put on a solemn face and felt like an ass. I'm impossible, she said with a smile. Chapter 2. They got along unusually well together as the weeks passed into months. April came, and Jean left on her European tour. Laura and Sarah were alone in the office with the doctors, and Laura worked with a will to make up for what she still had to learn. With each day, each fact acquired and skill polished, the job meant more to her. At home, there were no scenes or suspicions, such as female roommates have a talent for. Laura was quiet, shyly friendly, thoughtful. Marcy gave her a cram course in cooking, saw an occasional movie with her, and asked her how to spell things. Most of her free time was spent with Burr. Laura liked Marcy very much. She tried to keep it that way. She was relieved, as time went on, that her friendship didn't get complicated by stronger feelings. I like Marcy, and that's all, she mused to herself one time. It gave her a certain satisfaction that most women would not have understood. As for Marcy, she was somewhat amused with Laura, with her modesty, which seemed so old-fashioned, with her shyness, with her books. But she felt a real affection for her. Laura wasn't much for gossip, but she always listened to Marcy's compulsive confessions. She was gentle and sympathetic. Her ideas were different, and Marcy listened to her with respect. Laura wasn't pretty, but at certain angles, with certain expressions, she was striking and evening memorable. Not everyone saw this quality. Not everyone took the trouble to study her features, but they made a curious appeal to those who did. Her face was long and slim, and her coloring pale, but her eyes were deep and cornflower blue. If Marcy had studied them, she may have seen more worldly wisdom than she dreamed of in her bookish roommate. Laura had a good grasp on what it meant to be a woman, on what it meant to live deeply, completely, evening when it didn't last, on what it meant to be a loser. And everyone must lose at least once before he can understand what it is to win. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Burr had come over the night after Laura moved in. He was of medium height, but powerfully built, with a pleasant face. His brown hair was crew-cut, his brown eyes sparkled zealously, like those of a man with a mission. His mission, apparently, was Marcy. He seemed to adore her. It was so plain, in fact, that it made you wonder if it was real. He walked into the kitchen, where Laura and Marcy were finishing the dishes, grabbed Marcy without a word to Laura. He didn't even seem to see her, and kissed her passionately. Laura self-consciously wiped a dish, put it on the cupboard shelf, and started to back out of the room. Burr, you could have said hello, Marcy gasped when he released her. Laura, don't go. But he kissed her again. This time, when he let go, she was mad. It was beautiful to see. Laura was exhilarated with the force of it. Marcy, who was always full of laughter, was walloping Burr with a wet dishcloth and calling him, "You bastard." Her eyes flashed, and she swiped at his face with long, meticulously pointed nails. Laura headed for the bedroom, but Marcy turned and caught her. "Oh, no," she said, pulling Laura back. "I want you to see what I married. I want you to tell me if I wasn't smart to get a divorce. Look at him. Burr, his face damp with dishwater, was gently exploring a nail-inflicted wound with one finger. Laura tried to back out, but Burr saw her then and smiled. "Hello, Laura," he said. "You'll have to forgive my charming wife. She's very emotional." "I'm not your wife," Marcy flared. Laura couldn't help thinking it was all a joke. They both seemed to be enjoying it too much. Burr ignored Marcy. "You've probably never seen this side of her," he remarked to Laura. "I used to get it once or twice a day, like medicine. Finally drove me to divorce." Marcy threw a towel at him and he smiled pleasantly at Laura. "But don't let it bother you. You'll never have to marry her, so you'll avoid the problem." There was a stormy pause. "Have some coffee?" Laura said suddenly to Burr. "I'll fix him a highball," Marcy sighed. "He hates coffee." "I don't hate it." "Why do you exaggerate, honey?" "Well, you drink that horrible possum crap, like all the grandfathers." "It's not crap. It's a hell of a lot better for you than coffee, I can tell you that." "Then why don't you live on it, darling?" If I wanted sarcasm tonight, I would have gone over to Cheetah's. "That whore." I think I'll turn in," Laura said softly and hurried toward the door. "Don't be silly." Marcy looked at her, chagrined. "You haven't said 2 words to Burr." She couldn't say 2 words, honey. "You've been talking too fast." "I couldn't either, for that matter." He went over to Laura and led her by the hand to a chair. "Let's talk about you," he said. "Sit down." Laura felt ridiculous, but she obeyed him. "Where are you from?" he demanded. "She's from Chicago." Marcy handed him his drink and perched on the drain board of the sink. "Say something from Chicago, Laura." He grinned at her. She shrugged and laughed, embarrassed. "What does your old man do?" Laura was startled to think of him. He had been out of her mind in the bustle of moving in with Marcy. "He's a writer, a newspaperman," she said. She looked so uncomfortable that Burr let it drop. After a slight quiet he said, "What do you think of my girl?" "Burr, please," Marcy exclaimed, but he waved at her to shut up. "You know you won't be rooming with her for long, don't you?" He smiled at Laura, and it looked like a warning sort of smile. It made Laura faintly queasy, as if she had already done something wrong. Laura hated to compliment a woman. It was always hypocritical because she could never tell the truth without blushing. The more she admired a girl, the harder it was to talk about her. She began to blush. "She's a very nice girl," she said hesitantly. "Say it like you mean it," Burr said. "She's a wonderful girl evening if she is a shrew." "Damn, stop humiliating us, Burr. You aren't funny." Burr stared at Laura until she had to say something. "We get along just fine," she said. "Sure, the first 2 days." He laughed a little. "Burr," Marcy exploded. "She's a girl, not an ornery bastard male like you." "Well, I hope you two will be ecstatically happy," he said, and downed his drink. "I won't be talked about like this," Marcy said. She dropped down from the drainboard and started out of the room, but Burr caught her around the waist. He was sitting next to Laura, and he buried his face in Marcy's stomach. Marcy tried to grasp his short hair and push him back. Laura felt the old revulsion rising in her. Burr was doing nothing very shocking or immoral. He was just embracing the girl he loved, the girl who had been his wife. Laura knew that intellectually, but her spirit retreated from the sight, repulsed. "You know something, Laura?" Burr turned his head to look at her, still pressed against Marcy. "She acts like a damn virgin with me. She acts like she didn't have any idea what it's all about. Like we'd never been married at all, and I'd never, well, never mind what I did. She won't let me do it anymore." "Burr, you're really repulsive," Marcy said, shaking her head at him. "Am I?" He smiled at her. "You know you are." "Laura doesn't want to hear about that. Do you, Laura?" "I think I'd better get to bed," Laura said. "That's a good girl," Burr said approvingly. "Always knows when to cut out." "Laura, we're going to get along fine." "Don't go, Laura." Marcy ordered her. Laura, halfway to the bedroom, stopped. Scram, said Burr. As she shut the door behind her, he added, Sweet dreams, Laura. You're a doll. Laura shut the door on them as he took Marcy, still resisting, in his arms. She walked uncertainly around the bedroom for a few minutes. It occurred to her that Burr would be grateful for the use of the bedroom, but Marcy would never forgive her for suggesting it. Laura ran a bath. It took 15 minutes to get enough water to sit in, and sat contemplatively in it, wondering what her roommate was doing in the kitchen. She tried not to think of it, but when a thing revolted her, it stuck stubbornly in her head and tormented her deeply. Laura climbed out of the tub and dried herself, looking in the mirror as she did so. She had never liked the looks of herself very well. It still amazed her to think that this slim white body of hers, this tall, slightly awkward, firm-fleshed body had been desirable to someone once. She studied herself. She was not remarkable. She was not lush and ripe and sweet-scented. On the contrary, she was firm and flat everywhere, with long limbs and fine bones. Her pale hair hung long over her shoulders, and bangs framed her brow. I am certainly not beautiful, she thought consciously to herself. And yet I have been loved. I have loved. She gazed at herself for a moment more, and the ghosts of old kisses sent shivers down her limbs. Then she rubbed herself briskly with the towel and put her pajamas on. That's over now, she said to herself. That happened a million years ago. I'm not the same Laura anymore. I won't love like that again. I'll work, I'll read, I'll travel. Some people aren't made for love evening when they find it. It's wrong. I'm one of those. She picked up a book she had been reading, one of Burr's, and climbed into bed. There was a small lamp between the beds, and she switched it on, drawing her knees up for a book rest. The covers formed a tent over her legs. For a long while she sat and read about the mix-ups of other people, the people in the book. Then she closed it and put it on the bedside table. She turned the light off, but still she didn't lie down. She simply sat there in the dark, listening, and heard nothing. She put her head back, resting, thinking about them in the other room, hating her thoughts but unable to shake them. After a while she slept, still sitting half upright. Asterisk. Much later, muscle cramps woke her up and forced her to lie down. She noticed that the light under the kitchen door was out. She pulled the covers over her shoulders, wondering what time it was. In a moment, all was silence again. Laura, it was Marcy, whispering. Laura sat up with a start. Yes, Marcy, are you all right? I'm all right. Is he gone? Yes, for the time being. Oh, what time is it? About 3. You shouldn't stay up so late. You have to go to work in the morning. There was a little silence. Laura, yes, were you ever in love? Laura felt a terrible wave of emotion come up in her throat. What a damnable time. What a damnable way to ask such a question. She was defenseless against her feeling in the soft black night, with the soft voice of a lovely girl asking her, were you ever in love? For a while she tried to keep her mouth clamped shut, but Marcy asked her again and she was undone. Were you, Laura? Yes, she whispered. What was it like? Oh, God, Marcy, it was so long ago. It was so complicated. I don't know what it was like. Was it good? It was awful. Marcy turned over in bed at this, raising herself on her elbows. Wasn't it good sometimes? Now and then, Laura whispered, it was paradise. But most of the time it was hell. Did he love you? As much, I mean? Laura pressed her hands to her mouth, not trusting herself for a minute. Then she whispered, no. Oh, I'm sorry. Marcy's voice was warm with sympathy. Men are such bastards, aren't they? Yes, they are. After a moment of thought, Marcy said, Burr likes you. I'm glad. She couldn't stand to talk any more. Good night, Marcy. Good night, Laura. Marcy sounded a little disappointed, but she said nothing more, and in a minute Laura heard her roll over and fall asleep. Chapter 3. If Laura and Marcy went along together on greased wheels, Marcy and Burr did nothing of the kind. There was never anything real to argue about, but Burr couldn't pick up a book or clear his throat or make a suggestion without causing a disagreement, and he was as quick to snap at his ex-wife. The only times they weren't shouting at each other, they were kissing each other. You probably wonder why we keep seeing each other when we fight like this, Marcy said to her one night. Do you love each other? I don't know. Yes. Then I guess it doesn't matter if you fight. I hope it doesn't drive you nuts. No, not at all. Laura wouldn't even look up from her book. Marcy embarrassed her with these confidences. But she couldn't go on reading. She stared at the page and waited for Marcy to continue. Marcy couldn't keep a secret. Things poured out of her. Evening intimate things, evening things that belonged to her private soul and should have stayed there. Laura squirmed to hear her sometimes. We see each other, Marcy went on, because we can't keep our hands off each other. We fight because we're ashamed of what we want from each other. At least, I am. I guess Burr doesn't have any shame. No, that's not fair. I guess he's the one who's sure he's in love. Sometimes I think I am, because I want to keep seeing him, and other times I think it's just his big broad shoulders. Don't see him for a while, Laura said. Or try talking less when you do. See what happens. Or do you just want to keep torturing yourself? I guess I do, said Marcy with such a disarming smile that Laura had to smile back. Well, it's not my business. I can't pass out any helpful hints, Laura said. I won't care about your personal life. I can't, she thought. Marcy laughed, walking around the room, peeling off her clothes. Laura, you're a funny girl, she said. You're not like other girls I know. I'm not. Laura felt an old, near-forgotten sick feeling come up in her chest. No, other girls love to talk about things. They love to gossip. Why, I know some who would get started on Burr and keep going until they had to be gagged. But you're different. You just sit there and read and think. Don't you get worn out doing so much thinking? What makes you think I do so much? Oh, I don't know. Don't you? Everybody thinks. Not as much as you do. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't mean that. I guess I mean, why don't you ever go out? I do. I saw that musical last week. I don't mean with me, or other girls. I mean with boys. Laura loathed conversations like these. She felt as if she had spent her whole life justifying herself to somebody, mostly Meryl Landon, but others too, as if everything she did or didn't do had to be inspected and approved. If it wasn't approved, it stuck in her craw somewhere, and came up now and then to make her sick. I'm new in New York, she said. I don't know anyone yet. How about Dr. Carstens? You said he was good-looking. He's married. Well, the other one, then? He's practically married. Well, how about the big shot? He's a grandfather. She said it sarcastically. Marcy threw her hands up and laughed. Laura, I'm going to have to do something about you. Don't do anything about me, please, Marcy. Something in the tone of her voice sobered Marcy up. Why not? She said. I just don't want to be a bother, that's all. A bother. Marcy came and sat beside her on the bed, wearing only the bottoms of a pair of blue jersey pajamas, cut like slim harem pants. Her breasts were high and full and unbearably sweet. Laura, I like you. We're living together. We're friends. I guess I've made a bad impression on you with Burr and everything, but I want you to know I really like you. You're no bother. She smiled. I'll get Burr to fix you up with Jack Mann. We'll go somewhere together. We need to get out. Maybe we'd quit quarreling if we didn't sit around this apartment all the time. She paused, and Laura tried not to look at her. How about it? Marcy said. Laura was in a familiar situation. She'd been in it before. She'd be in it again. There was no escaping it. This is a heterosexual society, and everybody plays the game one way or another. or pretends to play it for appearance's sake. I'd love to, Laura said. Good. What night? Any night. Laura wanted to shove her off the bed, to throw the covers at her, anything to cover up her gleaming bosom. She felt herself go hot and cold by turns, and it exasperated her. She wondered how obvious it was, but evening in her discomfort she knew it didn't show as much as it felt. She finally climbed past Marcy and out of the bed, making a hasty way to the bathroom. I'll call Burr, Marcy called after her. Laura closed the bathroom door and leaned heavily against it, panting, her arms clasped tight around herself, rocking back and forth, her eyes shut. Spasms went through her and she shook herself angrily. Her hands stole downward in spite of herself, and suddenly all her feeling was fixed in one place, clarified, shattering. There was a moment of suppressed violence when she clapped one hand over her mouth, helpless in her own grasp, and her imprisoned mouth murmured, "Marcy, Marcy, Marcy," into her hand. And then came relief, quiet. The trembling ceased, the heaving breath slowed down. She relaxed utterly, with only just enough strength in her legs to hold her up, depending on the door to do the rest. "Damn her," she said in a faint whisper. Damn her. It was the first time she realized how strong her friendly feelings for Marcy really were, and she was dismayed. Laura went quickly to the wash bowl and turned on the tap. She ought to be making some noise. People don't disappear into bathrooms for 10 minutes in utter silence. At least not in this bathroom, where every pipe had its own distinct and recognizable scream. In a few seconds Marcy was calling at her through the door. "Laura, can I come in?" "Of course. We're going to make it for Friday. We'll see a show." "That sounds fine. It'll be fun." "I will not look at her," Laura told herself, and buried her face in a washcloth. She scrubbed herself assiduously while Marcy chattered. "Damn her anyway. I won't look at her. She has no claim on me. That was a silly fool thing I did. I'll pretend it didn't happen." It didn't happen. It didn't happen. She was afraid that if she did look it may happen again. She rinsed her face slowly, and careful in water from the groaning tap, and still Marcy stood there talking. Laura reached for a towel and dried her face. She hung the towel up again and turned to walk out of the bathroom, ready to ignore Marcy. But Marcy had slipped into pajama tops and looked quite demure, except for her extraordinarily pretty face. Laura stared at her, as she had known she would, as she did more and more lately. "We'll take in a show in Greenwich Village because it's easier to get tickets, at least to this one, and besides, Burr knows what's the matter, Laura." "What?" "Oh, nothing. Nothing. You looked kind of funny." "Did I? I didn't mean to." "That sounds fine. The show, I mean." She hurried past Marcy into the bedroom. In bed she cursed herself for an idiot. "I'm just an animal," she berated herself. "I hardly know Marcy. I won't start feeling this way. I won't." Out of the past rose the image of another face, a face serenely lovely, a face whose owner she had loved so desperately that she had finally been forced to leave school because of her. "Why, they look alike," she thought, startled. "Why didn't I see it before? I must be blind. They look alike, they really do." In the dark she pictured Marcy's face beside the other, matching, comparing, regretting. It tore at her heart to see them together. She wished the morning would never come when she would have to get up, bright and cheerful and ordinary, like every other morning, and look at Marcy's face again, and Marcy's breasts. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Morning came, as mornings will, and it went the same way. It was not intolerable. Laura was secretly on guard against Marcy now, or rather, on guard against herself. She wasn't going to fall. Marcy loved men, anyway, and Laura wasn't in any hurry to go through hell with her. A curious change had come over Laura since the days of the terrible and wonderful college romance with a girl named B.S. She had been so frightened then, so lost, so completely dependent on B.S. She had no courage, except what B.S. gave her, no strength except through B.S., no will but B.S.'s. She had loved her slavishly, adored her, And when B.S. left her for a man, when she told Laura it had never been real love for her at all, Laura was wounded clear through her heart. All these things were unknown to Meryl Landon, unknown and unsuspected. They would remain forever in the dark corners of Laura's mind, where she heaped her old hurts and fears. She had thought of killing herself when she left school and went home to face her father. But she was young and her youth worked against such thoughts. Perhaps the very fact that she had loved so deeply and so well prevented her. She had learned to need love too much to think seriously about death. B.S. had left scars on Laura, but she had been a good teacher too, and some of the things she taught her lover were beginning to assert themselves. Now that Laura was on her own and time was softening the pain, Laura walked tall. She felt tall. It wasn't the simple physical fact of her height. It was a curious self-respect born of the humiliation of her love. Chapter 4. The following evening Laura got home rather early after seeing a show with Sarah. She rode home on the subway with a dirty gray little man, repulsively anxious to be friendly. He kept saying, "I see you're not married. You must be very careful in the big city," and laughed nervously. Laura turned away. "You mustn't ignore me. I'm only trying to help," he whined. He babbled at her about young lambs in a den of wolves until she got off. He got off with her, still talking. Laura wasn't afraid, just mad. She turned suddenly on the little gray man at the subway entrance and said, "Leave me alone or I'll call the police." He smiled apologetically and began to mumble. Laura's eyes narrowed and she turned away contemptuously, walking with a sure, swift gait that soon discouraged him. Something proud and cold in her unmanned him. At last he stopped following and stood gaping after her. She never looked back. Laura arrived home, her cheeks warm with the quick walk and with the victory over the little man. "God, if I could do that to my father," she thought wistfully. She walked up the flight of stairs from the 12th floor to the penthouse and swung open the front door. The living room was lighted and so was the kitchen. The bedroom door was open, the room showing a cool blue beyond the loud yellow kitchen. Laura walked in, swinging her purse, thinking of the ugly little man and proud of the way she had trounced him. She stopped short with a gasp at the sight of Burr and Marcy naked together in Marcy's bed. "I'm sorry," she exclaimed and backed out, closing the door behind her. She collapsed on a kitchen chair and cried in furious disgust for half a minute. Then she stood up and went to the refrigerator, pretending to want a glass of milk just for an excuse to move, to ignore the hot silence in the next room. For a while no sounds issued from the bedroom. Laura poured the milk busily and carried it into the living room. She was just putting a record on when the bedroom door opened and Marcy slipped out in her bathrobe. Laura had put her milk down. Just the sight of it was enough to make her feel green. She turned to Marcy. "Hi," she said, too brightly. "Sorry I had to go and break in." Marcy burst out laughing. "That's okay. Damn him. I told him to go home. I knew you'd get home early. I just had a feeling." She went up to Laura, still laughing, and Laura turned petulantly away. Marcy didn't notice. "We took your advice, Laura," she said. "We haven't said a word to each other tonight." "Well," I said when he came in, "all right, we're not going to argue. Don't open your mouth. Not one word." And he didn't. He didn't even say hello. And her musical laughter tickled Laura insufferably. Burke came out of the bedroom, looking rather sheepish, rather sleepy, very satisfied. He smiled at Laura, who had to force herself to wear a pleasant face. He was buttoning his shirt, carrying his coat over his arm, and all he said was, "Thanks, Laura." He grinned, thumbing at Marcy. "We're not speaking. I hear it was your idea." He swatted Laura's behind. "Good girl," he said. He kissed Marcy once more, hard, drew on his coat, and backed out the door, still smiling. Marcy whirled around and around in the middle of the living room, hugging herself and laughing hilariously. "If it could always be like that," she said. I'd marry him again tomorrow. Laura brushed past her without a word, into the kitchen, where she poured the milk carefully back into the bottle, closed the refrigerator door, went into the bedroom, and got ready for bed. Marcy followed her, laughing and talking until Laura got into bed and turned out the light. She wouldn't even look at Marcy's rumpled bed, but it haunted her, and she didn't fall asleep until long after Marcy had stopped whispering. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Jack Man was small, physically tough, and very intelligent. He was a sort of cocktail hour cynic, disillusioned enough with things to be cuttingly funny. If you like that kind of wit, some people don't. The attitude carried over into his everyday life, but he saved his best wit especially for the after-work hours, when the first fine careless flush of alcohol gave it impetus. Unfortunately, he usually gave himself too much impetus, and went staggering home to his bachelor apartment under the arm of a grumbling friend. He was a draftsman in the office, where Burr worked as an apprentice architect, and he called his work highly skilled labor. He didn't like it, but he did like the pay. "Why do you do it, then?" Burr asked him once. "It's the only thing I know, but I'd much rather dig ditches." "Well, hell, go dig ditches then. Nobody's stopping you." Jack could turn his wit on himself as well as on others. "I can't," he told Burr. "I'm so used to sitting on my can all day I'd be lucky to get one lousy ditch dug. And then they'd probably have to bury me in it. End of a beautiful career." Burr smiled and shook his head, but he liked him. They got along. Jack went out with Burr and Marcy before and after they got married, and after they got divorced. He was the troubleshooter until he got too drunk, which was often. When he arrived with Burr on Friday night, Laura was irked to find that she was taller than he was. She had made up her mind that she wasn't going to enjoy the evening, just live through it. She'd have to spend the time mediating for Marcy and Burr and trying to entertain a man she didn't know or care about. So she was put out to discover that she did like Jack after all. It ruined her fine, gloomy mood. Marcy introduced them and Jack looked up at her quizzically. "What's the matter, Landon?" he said. "You standing in a hole?" Laura laughed and took her shoes off. It brought her down an inch. "Better," she said. "Better for me, very bad for your stockings." He grinned. "Have you read Freud?" "No." "Well, thank God. I won't have to talk about my nightmares." "Do you have nightmares? You have read Freud." "No, I swear." "You said." "Okay, I confess. I have nightmares. And you remind me of my mother." "Do you have a mother?" said Burr. "Didn't you just happen?" "That's what I keep asking my analyst. Do I have to have a mother?" "Jack, are you seeing an analyst?" Marcy was fascinated with the idea. Imagine being able to tell somebody everything, like a sacred duty. "Burr, don't you think I should be analyzed?" "What will you use for a neurosis?" Jack asked. "Do I need one?" "How about Burr?" "I'm taken," Burr said. "Besides, you talk like a nitwit, honey. You don't go to an analyst like you go to the hairdresser." Marcy's eyes flashed. "Thanks for the compliment," she said. "I'm not as dumb as I look. Come on, Mother." Jack took Laura's arm and steered her out the door. "I see a storm coming up." But it was dissipated when Marcy grabbed her coat and hurried after them. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. After the play they walked down 4th Street in the village, meandering rather aimlessly, looking into shop windows. Laura was lost. She had never been in the village before. She had been afraid to come down here, afraid she would see someone and do something, and suddenly find herself caught in the strange world she had renounced. It seemed so safe, so remote from temptation to choose an uptown apartment. And yet here she was with her nerves in knots, her emotions tangled around a roommate again. Laura pondered these things, walking slowly beside Jack in the light from the shop windows. She was unaware of where she walked or who passed by. It startled her when Jack said, "What are you thinking about, Mother?" "Nothing." A shade of irritation crossed her face. "Ah," he said. I interrupted something. No, she turned to look at him, uncomfortable. He made her feel as if he was reading her thoughts. Don't lie to me. You're daydreaming. I'm not. I'm just thinking. He shrugged. Same thing. She found him very irritating then. You don't say, she said and looked away from him. You hate me, he said with a little smile. Now and then. I messed up your daydream, he said. I'm rarely this offensive. Only when I'm sober. The rest of the time, I'm charming. Someday I suppose you'll daydream about me. Laura stared at him and he laughed. At least, you'll tell me about your daydreams. Never. People do. I have a nice face. Ugly, but nice. People think, Jesus, that guy has a nice face. I ought to tell him my daydreams. They do, too. He smiled. What's the matter, Mother? You look skeptical. What makes you think you have a nice face? Don't I? He looked genuinely alarmed. It wouldn't appeal to just anyone. Ah, smart girl. You're right, as usual. A boy's best friend is his mother. Only the discriminating ones, my girl, think it's a nice face. Only the sensitive, the talented, the intelligent. Now tell me, isn't it a nice face? It's a face, said Laura. Everybody has one. He laughed. You're goofy, he said. You need help. My analyst is very reasonable. He'll stick you for all you've got, but he's very reasonable. Burr, who was walking ahead of them with Marcy, turned around to demand, somebody tell me where I'm going. Turn right at the next corner, said Jack. You're doing fine, boy. Don't lose your nerve. I just want to know where the hell I'm going. That's a bad sign. Very bad. Cut it out, Jack, said Marcy. Where are we going? A little bar I know. Very gay. I go there alone when I want to be depressed. It sounded sinister, not gay, to Laura. What's it called? She said. The Cellar. Don't worry, it's a legitimate joint. He laughed at her long face. Marcy laughed too, and Laura's heart jumped at the sweetness of the sound. It made her hate the back of Burr, moving with big masculine easiness ahead of her in a tweed topcoat, his bristling crew cut shining. A few minutes later Jack led them down a few steps to a pair of doors, which he pushed in, letting Laura and Marcy pass. Laura heard Burr say, behind her, in an undertone, "It is gay," and he laughed. You bastard. She was mystified. It looked pretty average and ordinary. They headed for a table with 4 chairs, one of the few available, and Laura looked around. The cellar was quite dark, with the only lights placed over the bar and glowing a faint pinky orange. There were candles on the tables, and people crowded together from one end of the room to the other. Everybody seemed reasonably cheerful, but it didn't look any gayer than any other bar she had been in. She looked curiously at Burr, but he was helping Marcy out of her coat. No table service, Jack said. What does everybody want? They gave him their orders, and Laura tried to catch his eye, hoping for more information about the place. She was curious now. There were checkered tablecloths, fishnets on the wall, a lot of people, all rather young, at the tables and bar. The jukebox was going, and somebody was trying to pick up a few bucks doing pencil portraits, but no one seemed very interested. The customers looked like students. There were girls in cotton pants, young men in sweaters and open-collared shirts. They all look like students, she said to Burr. He grinned. I never thought of it that way, he said. I guess they do, all right. She stared at him, and then she looked around the room again, and suddenly she saw a girl with her arm around another girl at a table not far away. Her heart jumped. A pair of boys at the bar were whispering urgently to each other. Gay, Laura thought to herself. Is that what they call it? Gay? She was acutely uncomfortable now. It was as if she were a child of civilization, reared among the savages, who suddenly found herself among the civilized. She recognized them as her own, and yet she had adopted the habits of another race, and she was embarrassed and lost with her own kind. They looked at her own kind, from the bar and from the tables, and didn't recognize her. And Laura looked around at them and thought, I'm one of you, help me. But if anyone had approached her, she would have turned away. Jack came back with the drinks and sat down, passing them around. He drank a shot of whiskey and said to Laura, Well, how do you like tonight's collection? Tonight's collection of what? Laura said, Of nuts. He looked around the cellar. Doesn't anyone tell you anything, Mother? Burr, what's the matter with you? She's a tourist. Make with the old travelogue, boy. Burr laughed. I thought you didn't get it, Laura. He smiled. They're all queer. Laura's face went scarlet, but the candlelight hid it. She felt an awful tide of anger and fear come up in her at that word. She felt trapped, almost frantic, and she vented it on Jack. Why didn't you tell me? She said. Her voice trembled with indignation. Take it easy, Mother, he said. Tonight's collection, she mimicked bitterly. You talk about them as if they were a bunch of animals. They are, he said quietly. So are we. We're human beings, she said. We have no right to sit here and laugh at them for something they can't help. Can't help, hell, Burr said, leaning over the table toward her. All those gals need is a real man. That'd put them on the right track in a hurry. Laura could have belted him. She wanted to shout, How do you know, you big ape? But she said instead, You're not irresistible, Burr. I don't mean that, he said, frowning at her. Christ, I only mean a man who knows the first thing about women could lay any one of these dames, evening a butch, and make her like it. What's the first thing about women? Jack asked, smiling, but they ignored him. If men revolt her, and somebody tried to lay her, he'd only make her sick. No matter how much he knew about women, Laura said sharply, any girl who doesn't like men is either a virgin or else some bastard scared the hell out of her. She needs gentling. You talk about us as if we were horses, Laura flared. Us? Burr stared at her. Us women. Laura's face was burning. Burr watched her as he talked. Some girls get a bastard the first time, he said. It's too bad. They end up in joints like this swapping horror stories with the other ones. Laura hated the way he talked. She couldn't take it. What if the bastard is her father? She said. And he scares the hell out of her when she's 5 years old, and 20 years later some ass who thinks he's a great lover comes along and throws her down and humiliates and horrifies her. Jack remarked with amusement and probably more enlightenment than the others. Jesus, we have a moralist in our mid. He looked at her as if she were a new species of fish. Damn it, Laura, that's the point, Burr said. He wouldn't humiliate her. I don't mean some goddamn truck driver with nothing but a quick lay on his mind. I mean a considerate, decent sort of guy, a sort of good Samaritan. He grinned and Marcy said, God, and rolled her eyes to the ceiling. Who really wants to help the girl? Burr finished. Why don't you try it? Jack said. Marcy's face darkened. Yes, darling, why don't you prove your little theory? I'm sure we'd all be fascinated. Now damn it, don't you go yammering at me. I'm talking to Laura. Excuse me, Marcy said. Laura leaned toward her. I didn't mean to start anything, she said. Nobody ever does, Jack remarked to himself. He said he could lay any girl and make her like it, Marcy said. I said, Burr said, turning to her and intoning sarcastically, that any guy with any. We know what you said, boy, Jack interrupted. Let's keep it purely theoretical. Nobody has to prove anything. Burr loves Marcy and Marcy loves Burr. Jack loves whiskey and whiskey hates Jack. Laura loves animals. Everybody hacky. Thinking over what she had said, while Jack talked, Laura began to feel sick. She wished she had been perceptive enough to see where she was when they first came into the cellar, but she took things at face value. They had entered a little bar and they were going to have a nightcap. Okay, what was so sinister about that? Why did it have to turn out to be a damn gay bar? And why did she have to react like an angry virgin when she found out? They stayed long enough to get pretty high. They were stared at by the regular customers, but Laura was afraid to stare back. When she did, once or twice, she couldn't catch anyone's eye. She was ashamed of herself for trying to, but she couldn't help it. There was a girl at the bar, standing at one end, in black pants and a white shirt open at the collar. Her hair was short and dark, and there once again was that troubling resemblance to BS. There were some other people with her, and they were all talking. But the short-haired girl seemed somehow apart from them. Now and then she would turn and smile at one of them and say a word or two. Then she turned her gaze back to the bar or into her drink, or just stared into the mirror behind the bar without seeing anything. Laura glanced at her now and then. She had an interesting face. It made Laura want to talk to her. It must be the drinks, she thought, and refused another. I see by the look in your eye, Jack said, that you've had enough of this place. It's nearly midnight. Are you going to turn into a pumpkin? God, I hope not, said Laura. It's after midnight, said Marcy. Let's go. After all, poor Burr had to get up at 6 this morning to get to work. He's probably exhausted. Maybe we should leave him here and let him organize a night school for the ladies. Wouldn't be any takers in here, Jack observed, looking around. They aren't ladies, they're lesses. Do you have to talk about them as if they were exhibits in a zoo? Laura exclaimed. God, now we're quarreling, said Jack, laughing. But they weren't really, for it takes two to make a quarrel, and he was feeling powerfully good-natured with all that booze in him. Leave us not forget our dignity, he told Laura. He enunciated with meticulous care, not to let the liquor trip his tongue. Marcy laughed at him and pulled Laura aside as they got up. Let's go, she said, and Laura walked with her to the ladies' room. It was a glaring change from the softly lighted cellar. They were nearly blinded with a big bare bulb, which hung by a frayed wire far down into the room, and watched all the proceedings with an unblinking eye. You go first, Laura said to Marcy. There were few things less appealing to her than a public restroom, especially a one-horse job like this with its staring light, cracked mirror, and mounds of used paper towels on the cement floor. She wet her comb slightly in the tap and ran it through her hair. The door opened, and the girl with the short dark hair and black pants came in. She lounged indolently against the wall, studying Laura. Laura recognized her from the bar, but ignored her royally. Marcy was talking to her through the John door. How do you like Jack? She said. A lot, Laura said, for the benefit of the girl in the black pants. Her voice was warm enough to surprise Marcy. I'm glad, she said. I thought once or twice you were mad at him. Laura's cheeks went red again. God, how she hated that. And there was nothing she could do about it. She pulled the comb hard through her hair, afraid to look into the mirror. She knew she would meet the eyes of the girl in the black pants. He's very intelligent, she said to Marcy. He's funny, Marcy said, coming out of the John. She nearly walked into the strange girl and said, Oh, excuse me. My pleasure, the girl murmured with a grin. Laura felt suddenly jealous. It was maddening. She didn't know who she was jealous of. She wanted the other girl to notice her, not Marcy. And she wanted Marcy to notice her, too. She stood a moment in confusion, and then she said to the girl in the black pants, Go ahead, and nodded at the John. She said it to make her look up, which she did, slowly, and smiled. She looked shockingly boyish. Laura stared slightly. Thanks, said the girl. She shut the door behind her, and Marcy laughed silently, covering her mouth with her hand. But Laura turned away, excitement tight in her throat. Let's go, she said impatiently, dragging Marcy away from the mirror. She was afraid the strange girl would come out and talk to them. She was anxious to get out of the cellar, out of the village. She felt a pressing sense of danger. Marcy turned to her as they went back to the table and said, I'll bet Burr couldn't have gotten anywhere with that one. And she laughed. She'd throw a hammer lock on him and tell him to pick on somebody his own size. Laura smiled faintly at her. Did you see how she stared at you? Marcy said. Did she stare at me? Yes, but she stared at me too. That's the awful thing about lesbians, they have no discrimination. Laura suddenly wanted to scream at her. It was so wrong, so false, so agonizing to have your lips sealed when you wanted to shout the truth. They left the smoky cellar and walked a few blocks, talking. Jack took a weaving course, and Laura had to steer him with one arm. Let's take a taxi, Marcy said. It's only 2 blocks to the subway, Burr reminded her. Can't you ever spend a little extra on me? She exclaimed. Don't you think I'm good enough to ride in a taxi? Don't you think I'm worth another buck once in a while? You did when we got married. Yeah, and I went broke. Subway's cheap. Well, I'm not. Here, said Jack. He took a quarter from his pocket and held it up to Marcy's face. Heads, she said. He flipped, while Laura thought to herself what child's play it all was. Jack seemed unsophisticated now, and Marcy and Burr had lost the beauty and excitement they seemed to generate together, evening in the amid of their quarrels, perhaps because of them. We all look tired and silly, Laura thought, and I wish we were anywhere but the middle of Greenwich Village flipping over a taxi ride. Heads, said Marcy. She poked Burr in the stomach. No show next week, he said. You don't think I care, do you? Never mind, children, this is my treat, said Jack. He smiled foxily. I'm no fool with money, he said. I grow it in my window box. I give it all to Mother, here, and she invests it for me. Don't you, Mother? Don't be an ass, said Laura, but she laughed at him. She loves me, Jack explained to Burr and Marcy. Suddenly he left them all to dash into the middle of the street, waving his arms wildly at a pair of headlights that were bearing down on him. They screeched to a halt with an irate taxi driver behind them. Marcy gave a little scream, and the driver leaned out and said, You damn fool. You'd better get that punk home and give him some black coffee, lady, he told Laura as they started uptown. If you don't mind a little advice. He's going to hate himself tomorrow, Marcy said. He's damn lucky he's gonna be around tomorrow, said the cabbie. They all talked about him as if he were deaf. And in fact he was, for he had fallen asleep almost as soon as he got into the cab. Does he do this all the time? Laura asked Burr. He's a great guy, Laura, Burr said, as if trying to bolster Jack in Laura's eyes. He just flies off the handle now and then. I guess he's got problems. At the apartment Laura got out first. Burr said, I'll wake him up, Laura, but she protested. Just let him sleep, she said. I'd hate to interrupt his dreams. I heard that, said a ragged voice from the shadows inside the car. You're a doll, Mother. Chapter 5. She was under the covers and almost asleep when Marcy tiptoed in after bidding Burr good night. She moved around the room for a few minutes, getting ready for bed. Laura was just barely aware of her. After a little while she heard her turn the light off and cuddle the covers around herself. The silence up above the city late at night was deep, lulling, almost country-like. Only an occasional stray horn filtered up to their level. It sounded like a far-off echo. Laura, are you asleep? Marcy whispered. Yes. Oh, she was quiet for a minute. Then she whispered, I have to ask you something. Don't marry him. It'll never work. No, I don't mean that. I mean, does it make you feel funny to see those people? What people? Queers? They aren't queer, Marcy. That's a cruel word. Her eyes were wide open now in the dark. What are they then? Homosexuals. She said it shyly. That's too long. Well, does it make you feel funny? I don't know what you mean, Marcy. Well, I mean like the butch in the ladies' room. Didn't she make you feel queer? I mean funny, she laughed. Looking at us like she was a man, or something? I guess so. She was looking at us when she was at the bar, too. She was. Laura was amazed that Marcy would notice such a thing. How do you know? Marcy laughed again. I was looking at her, she said. You what? Oh, not the way you think. I was just sort of looking around and she was looking at our table. I think she wanted to come up and talk to us, but she didn't dare with the boys there. She knew we weren't gay. Is that what they call it, gay? Yes, you know. It gave me the funniest feeling, her staring at us like that. Laura turned over in her bed, very wide awake. She said to herself, I won't ask her about it, but she couldn't help asking, what sort of feeling? She whispered, well, it was like if I tell you you won't think I'm like them, will you? Oh, no, of course not. Laura felt the blood beating in her throat. It was like I wanted to know what she'd do to me if we were alone. I mean, I was sort of curious. I wondered what it would feel like. Not that I'd ever let a girl. I mean, Laura, did you ever kiss a girl? No, Laura said. In the dark she could lie pretty well. Her blushing cheeks didn't show. I did, once. Laura put her hands to her throat and tried to still her breathing. Did you like it? She whispered. Not much, but I didn't dislike it. I was at that age. She was a friend of mine in junior high. Maybe she turned out queer. I mean homosexual. She probably thinks I turned out queer, and she laughed. She was always wanting to touch tongues. Laura shivered. Did you? A couple of times. It gave me the creeps. With a man it's so lovely. Laura heard her turn in her bed to face her. Didn't you ever do that when you were little? We used to do it a lot, just because it felt so awful. But Lenore was always wanting to do it with me when we got older. We were sort of best friends for a while. Laura was sitting up, shivering, on the edge of her bed. She thought, Dear God, if there is a God, help me now. Don't let me touch her. Please don't let me. Suddenly Marcy got up and crossed the small aisle between the beds. She felt Laura and sat beside her. Stick out your tongue, she commanded, giggling. No, come on. I want to feel 12 years old again. I feel silly. Stick your tongue out. She was teasing, and Laura could see the flash of gold hair in the moonlight that struck them from the window by the bed. Marcy, don't do this. Don't. You're playing with fire. Please, this is crazy. But her voice dwindled to a whisper as Marcy took her face in her hands, and she was powerless to resist. She let herself be pulled toward Marcy, felt Marcy's soft, wet tongue searching for her own. Laura opened her mouth with a slight gasp. Her arms went out to grasp Marcy's slender body as a groan escaped her. Suddenly the phone rang. Laura gave a little scream of shock. They were both utterly silent and motionless until it rang again. Then Marcy began to laugh. Oh, wouldn't you know, she said. Saved by the bell. Saved from a life of sin. The phone rang again. I'll get it, Marcy said. She sprang up from the bed. Laura sat frozen where she was, hugging herself, trembling and miserable. It's probably Burr wanting to apologize for being such a skunk, Marcy said. She threw herself across her bed and lifted the receiver. Hello, Laura, it's for you. She put her hand over the mouthpiece and said, It's Jack. I don't want to talk to him. Don't be silly. Talk to him. Unwillingly, Laura took the phone, sitting on the bed beside Marcy. She was so conscious of Marcy's body stretched out there beside her that she had trouble concentrating on Jack. He said, Mother, I've been an ass. I know. Forgive me. You're forgiven, she said. Now go to bed. Good night. But I am in bed, he said. He was still pronouncing each word with elaborate care. My question is this. Did you really mean it? Mean what? Said Laura, looking at the faint moonlit curve of Marcy's leg. I'd swear you said you loved me, he said. You were dreaming. Do you? No, Jack, please go to bed. Let me go. If I went any more to bed than I already am, Mother, and don't think that was easy to say, because it wasn't, I don't know where I'd be. Say you love me. No, Jack, it's late. I'm tired. Tomorrow is Saturday. You can sleep. I don't care what tomorrow is. I'm tired right now. Now good night. Do something for me, Mother. Marcy turned over, lying across her pillow on her stomach. What? Laura said softly. losing contact with him. Promise. Okay, she whispered it. Kiss Marcy for me. What? Laura was shocked into total awareness. Good night, Mother, Jack said, and hung up. Laura replaced the receiver and sat uncertainly on the bed next to Marcy for a minute. She didn't dare to wonder what Jack meant. She had enough to do just keeping her hands off Marcy's smooth behind. She felt afraid of her. What would BS have done if it had been me lying there? She wondered and knew at once. BS would have laid down on top of her, her front to Marcy's back. BS would have kissed her neck, her ears, her shoulders. BS would have, Laura, Marcy murmured. Yes, her throat was dry, making it hard to answer. We'd better get to sleep. It was all over, then. Laura had waited too long. Maybe Marcy would have repulsed her anyway. Maybe her hesitation had saved her. On the other hand, maybe, Laura burned to know, but Marcy had lost the playful, childish, experimental mood and was already half asleep. Chapter 6. At work on Monday, Laura's phone rang halfway through the morning. Doctors Hollingsworth, Carstens, and Hagstrom, she said, businesslike. What a mouthful, she thought to herself. Her listener apparently had the same idea. Jesus, what a tongue twister, he said. What happened to Smith? There is no doctor. Smith, she said, taken aback. Oh, don't be so damn formal, Mother. It's not like you. I thought I'd better apologize while I'm sober. I was drunk the last time. I know. How are you, Jack? She smiled at the thought of his face. Bored, but healthy. I didn't mean to fall asleep in your face Friday night. It's okay. Forget it. Just for that, I'll give you a free ticket to see my analyst. He's a great guy. He needs you. He needs me. Have you got $50 a week to spend on your salvation? I haven't got $50 a week to spend on my groceries, she said. Well, I guess he doesn't need you as much as I thought, but I'd be glad to stake you to your first session. After that, it becomes habitual. You crave it. You'll find the money somehow. Laura was laughing. Give it to Marcy, not me, she said. She's the one who loves to talk. You do some pretty good talking yourself. I do. You got lyrical in defense of oddballs Friday night. I did not. Let's not go into that again anyway, she said. Look, Jack, I'd like to talk to you, but I know you're at work. So am I. Don't you ever get tired of work? I'm on probation here. If I don't do well, they'll fire me in June. So your poor, virtuous, hardworking little life revolves around that office. Now you're being an ass again. I'm telling you, Laura, you'd make a good soap opera. So would the rest of us. We're all a bunch of nuts in a million nutsy little soap operas. Will Burr marry Marcy? Will Jack take the pledge? Will Laura stick it out till June? Tune in tomorrow. We won't have the answer for you, but we'll sell you soap like all hell. Do you know why people buy soap? To wash themselves. No, they like to play with themselves in the bathtub. Laura had to laugh at him. You fool, she said. Jack, I can't talk to you, honestly. Okay, I'll call back. No, call tonight. But I want to see you tonight. She was unaware that she may have impressed him on their date, and he took her by surprise. You do? Well, don't sound so damn shocked. You're a nice girl evening if you are 10 feet tall. I'll pick you up at 7:30. No, I can't, Jack. Okay, 8. I'm busy. The hell you are. I am. You lie. I have an instinct about these things. 8 sharp. All at once Laura became aware of another voice calling her. Laura, it was Dr. Hollingsworth. He was standing over her desk, and she looked up suddenly like a scared little kid. Yes, sir, she said. She hung up without even saying goodbye to Jack. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Jack Man was not a pushy type. On the contrary, he was rather shy, although it rarely showed. He went to parties and hid behind a stream of wisecracks. He did the same thing on dates. He did it with anyone and everyone. It was a sort of defense mechanism, a way of hiding his real self. And he had done it for so many years that by now it was second nature. Evening people who knew him fairly well, like Burr and Marcy, never saw beneath this facade of witticism. They thought that was Jack, all funny asides and not much serious straight talk. It was hard to take him seriously. He didn't want that. He wanted to be laughed at, to be amusing, and he usually contrived to be. He was content to let people take him for a wag. But once while he ran across somebody who made him feel sick of the mask he hid behind, somebody who made him yearn to talk, quietly and seriously, about the things that mattered to him. It happened when he was unlucky enough to fall in love, or when he met a loner like himself and felt an unspoken sympathy. It happened with Laura. It wasn't easy for him to call her back. It would have been if she hadn't appealed to his emotions. There were a lot of girls he called just for the sake of their mutual amusement or just to amuse himself. But if he bantered lightly with Laura, it was more because he couldn't help it than because he wanted to, more because he had found it almost impossible to talk straight anymore. At 8 o'clock he showed up at the apartment. He walked into the living room without knocking and said, "It's me." When nobody answered, he wandered through to the bedroom and found Laura giving Marcy a home permanent. "God, what a stink," he said. Laura looked up in surprise. "I thought you were kidding," she said. "About the date?" He smiled at her. She was dressed in tight chinos and a boy's shirt. It was her favorite after-work outfit. "You weren't planning on the Stork Club, I see," he cracked. "I wasn't planning on anything. That's a dangerous attitude, Mother. Always plan on something. Avoid accidents." "Jack, you can't have her," Marcy said. "I'll never get this thing right without her." She waved a plastic curler at him helplessly. "You're better off without it, doll. Take it from me. Come on, we'll go as you are." "Jack, I can't. I had no idea. Come on. I want to talk to you. We can talk here." "No, we can't. Marcy's here." "I won't listen," Marcy said with a smile. "Besides, I can't talk," he said, and Laura caught a glimpse of the shyness hidden in him. "I'm sober as a post." He shrugged. "Let's go." "I can't go like this." "Never mind the pants, they're becoming." For some deep, buried, and curious reason she was flattered. She stood there hesitating, and Jack took advantage of her. He grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the door. "Kidnapper," Marcy wailed. "My coat," Laura said. "You don't need one. It's balmy. So are you." "Thanks." He guided her down the steps. This was a switch for Laura. She had never been especially attractive to men before, starting at the beginning with her father and going right on up through college. She didn't look warm and soft and yielding. She was remote and involved in herself, aloof from everybody, men included. She didn't like them very much and they sensed it. Now, here was a well-educated, intelligent male giving her the rush. She didn't understand it. Jack didn't appeal to her physically any more than any other man, in fact, a little less. He was small, wiry, rather owlish in his horn rims. He looked like an Ivy League undergrad. She guessed he was about 25. Laura was 20, but she supposed that in 5 or 6 years she may be as cynical as Jack was. She liked to hear him say things she never dared to say herself. They went to a little bar a few blocks away, where Laura had gone once with Marcy for a beer. It was a quiet spot with a steady clientele. They walked in and took a booth in the back. "I usually prefer the bar," said Jack, "but I always end up telling my troubles to the bartender. So we'll sit back here." Laura felt a little strange walking into a bar in a pair of pants, but she was with a man and she hoped that made it all right. "Just a beer," she said to Jack. A year ago she would have said, "Just a Coke," and said it in a way to make him think she disapproved of liquor. But lately she had picked up a taste for beer. B.S. liked it and so did Marcy. That was too much for Laura. There must be something to it, so she had gotten into the habit of having one now and then in the evening, when she got home from work. It relaxed her. It made her feel that she could think of Meryl Landon without exploding, or of Marcy without crawling out of her skin. She felt like maybe she could stand it, living this way with Marcy, and everything would turn out all right. The waitress brought their drinks, and Jack poured her beer for her. Then he downed his shot and drank some water. He seemed to be looking for a way to talk to her. "How long have you and Marcy been together?" he said finally. "That's an odd way to put it," Laura thought warily. "Since January," she said. "Oh, yeah, I guess Burr mentioned it. He likes you." He smiled at her and she relaxed a little. "Why don't Burr and Marcy get along?" she asked. Jack shrugged and hailed the waitress. Then he looked at Laura. "They don't want to," he said. "It would spoil the fun." "They love each other," said Laura. "Physically, yes, they do." Laura didn't like his definition. "Marcy says they may get married again." "Yeah, they're just blind enough to do it, too." "Marcy's not blind. Sorry." A slip of the tongue. He grinned and drank the fresh drink the waitress had just delivered. "Well, she's not," Laura said, disconcerted by his manner. "She really loves Burr. At least, she thinks she does." He put his glass down. "Marcy hasn't learned to love yet," he said. "You mean she doesn't love Burr?" She asked the question eagerly. "No," he said quietly, studying her. "She loves physical excitement. She loves a big, virile, passionate sauna bitch to make a fuss over her." "You're wrong," she said, disappointed. "She doesn't fight just for the sake of fighting. It's just with Burr. She never fights with me." Jack laughed a little, privately. "That's because you're a girl, Mother," he said. "I can tell 'cause you got long hair." Laura began to sweat under his searching eyes. "That's not the point," she said, exasperated. "Marcy has a sweet disposition. She's very quiet. It must be Burr." "Quiet?" Jack laughed. "The way that girl talks, she's about as quiet as Grand Central during rush hour." "All right, she talks a lot." Laura was getting mad. "That doesn't mean she likes fights, or men who thrive on them. That's just what it does mean. Believe it. It's true. You're screwy. You're in love." "What?" She said it in a shocked whisper, staring at him, feeling her cheeks go scarlet. "What does that mean?" she said. Her voice was dry and small and her hands were wet. Jack drank another shot. Then he put the glass down and leaned toward her over the table, his face serious. "You're gay, Laura." Laura was speechless for a moment, surprised beyond her capacity to think or feel. Then an awful sick trembling came up in her throat. For a minute she hung between flight and a fight. She was furious, scared and humiliated. It never occurred to her to deny the truth. Jack had hit the bull's eye. She clenched her fists on the tabletop and violent things came to her lips. But before she could utter them, Jack spoke again. "Oh, don't look so damn mad. You're not the only one," he sighed, crushing his cigarette in a scorched ashtray. "I am too, so don't give me a martyr act." And he nodded again to the waitress. Laura put her hands over her face suddenly, pressing one hand over her mouth to catch the sobs. She heard the waitress come up and turned her head to the wall. "Same for me," Jack said. "How about the lady? Bring her a double whiskey." Laura could feel the woman looking at her curiously. She wanted to evaporate. She hated the impersonal curiosity of this stranger. After a minute Jack said, "She's gone." Laura put her hands down, but she couldn't look at him. She just said rather hopelessly, "How did you know?" "Takes one to know one," he said with light sarcasm. "How?" Laura demanded. "You're a man. So I'm a man. You're a girl. We're both queer." "How did you know?" she said sharply, looking at him now. "You've got a crush on Marcy." "That's how." Laura gasped a little. "Is it so obvious?" she asked, frightened. Jack shook his head. "To me, maybe. But only because I was looking for it." "You were? Why, I'm always looking for it." He was bantering again. She realized now that he had called her Laura when he said it. "You're gay, Laura." He was dead serious then. Do you look for it evening in girls? She said. In anybody, you may say it's a hobby with me. I spot one and I think to myself, another poor bastard like me. It boosts my morale. I guess it's a case of misery loves company. I'd rather suffer alone, she said, not without pride. You'll get over that when you learn your way around. Laura was still trembling all over. Listen to me, Jack, she said, leaning over the table and brushing the last tear impatiently from her cheeks. I never heard that word, gay, like you use it until our date Friday. Nobody ever called me gay before. I didn't even know what it meant. But I'll tell you this, I never touched Marcy. I've never tried to get away with anything with her. Never. She doesn't know and she never will. She said this almost fiercely, but Jack only smiled at her. Okay, he said. Don't preach at me. I believe you. I believe you haven't been climbing into Marcy's bed after hours, anyway. But don't let Marcy fool you. She can be wild sometimes. She gets in crazy moods and she'll do anything. I saw her go up to a bum in Central Park and kiss him once on a dare. A big ugly slob of a guy. It was enough to get her killed, but she loved it. Laura was revolted, but not surprised. Not after what Marcy had done to her last Friday night. She couldn't possibly suspect me, she said stubbornly. I never do a thing. You did plenty in the cellar Friday night. I did. She felt that old sick feeling come over her again. You looked at her like you had ideas. You held the door for her. You argued with Burr. But all you said was you were gay, to anybody who bothered to figure it out. Well, I did. That's all. Laura's face was hot and she tried to defend herself. All I did was defend them, homosexuals. I just said they were human beings, not animals. Is that against the law? Not they, mother, Jack said softly. You're one of us. But Burr and Marcy don't know that, she said, almost pleading with him to agree. Jack raised a finger to his lips. Everybody will know it if you don't keep your voice down, he said. Okay, Burr doesn't know it. As for Marcy, you live with the girl. You should know. She couldn't, Laura said, but she felt shaky. You aren't sure, are you? Why don't you find out? How? She looked at him eagerly. Ask her. He laughed to see her face fall. Damn you. Okay. Don't ask her. Make a pass at her. You're mad. Laura stared at him, shocked. I'd never do such a thing. Why, my God, she may call the police. Or Burr. She'd hate me. I couldn't stand it. Jack, don't tell me to make a fool of myself. Do you want to get me into a tragic mess? I want to keep you out of one, mother. That's why I'm talking this way. Well, act like you did, then. You drag me down here, when I didn't want to come in the first place, and tell me. She swallowed convulsively. Tell me I'm gay. She spat the word at him. And then you have the gall to sit there and tell me to make love to Marcy. She almost choked on the words. When you know damn well she'd probably be revolted by it, she'd. Calm down, mother, have a drink. And he held her glass up to her until she took it from him. It burned her throat, but she was too worked up to care. Now, said Jack, I asked you down here to tell you I know you're gay. And so am I. I want to be friends with you, Laura. She glanced up at him and found that he was embarrassed for all the liquid courage he was consuming, and it was hard for him to talk. Damn it, he said. I'm so used to talking like an idiot. I can't say what I mean anymore. I wanted to tell you, to warn you, Laura, I was in the situation you're in now. Once, long ago, I fell for a roommate of mine. I didn't think he knew anything either. I didn't see how it was possible. I was so damn careful. I never said anything. I never did anything. Jesus Christ, I even avoided the guy. I went out of my way to avoid him. But I was nuts about him, Laura. I wanted him so bad it hurt. I'd lie there in the dark and tell myself, you can't have him over and over. I'd say, who the hell do you think you are? If you were the prettiest boy on earth, he wouldn't look twice. And man, you aren't the prettiest boy on earth. You're the ugliest. Whenever we talked late at night, whenever we went anywhere together, whenever we touched, I used to burn up inside. I used to die of it. I wanted to kiss him, feel him all over, just hold him. God, it killed me, but I never let on. Never. And one day, this'll give you an idea of what to expect, Mother. One day, after all this noble chastity and virtue and self-denial crap I was going through, he came up to me and said, "Jack, I hate to say this, but I'm moving out." "Why?" Laura asked softly, her forehead wrinkled with sympathy. "Because I was gay." He didn't say it that way, of course. He didn't say, "Because you're queer, you poor bastard." "I'm sorry for you, but I can't take it any more." I could have stood that. But he just handed me a lot of bull. Laura felt like crying again, but she only said, "Isn't that something to be grateful for?" He tried, anyway. Yeah, he tried. He said it so acidly that Laura was afraid to say any more. "There've been a lot since Joe," he said, after a while, "just like there'll be a lot for you after Marcy." Laura tried to protest, but he waved her down. I know, you're going to keep hands off. You're going to spend your whole life ignoring sex, ignoring what you are, denying that you want it, running away from it. I was going to, too." That was 25 years ago. 25 years ago. Laura stared at him. "How old are you, Jack?" 42. Surprised. He smiled at her gaping astonishment. "I thought you were maybe 5 years older than I am." 25 or so. "You can't be 42. That's what I keep telling myself. I can't be, but I sure as hell am. I don't believe it." He grinned. "Good," he said. "I like to fool people." Why? It seemed crazy. What does a man care how young he looks? "I thought that was for women," Laura said. "Women and gay boys. Do you think some pretty 20-year-old is going to fall for a fat, bald, middle-aged bastard with not even a bankroll to offer? I'm ugly, Mother. That's enough of a handicap. When I start looking old, I'll quit." "You're not ugly, Jack," she said gently, trying to console him. But he took it with a sardonic laugh. "Only a mother could love me," he said. "Don't talk like this. You make me so sad." "Ah, Christ," he said, and drank. He looked up at Laura, and she could see he wasn't focusing very well now. "I came here to talk about you anyway, not me. What did your father do to you when you were 5 years old?" Laura started. "When did I say that? Did I mention my father?" she asked. "Yes, in the cellar. Probably as good a place as any." I didn't mean my father," she said. "Don't fib to me, Laura. Let's be friends." After a few moments, she said, "I can't talk about it, Jack." "What did he do?" We were at a summer resort." It began to spill out of her. Jack had bared his anguish, and she felt suddenly safe with him, and needed. "We were there for a vacation one summer. We went fishing on the lake, father and mother and my brother and me." Her voice grew soft as she spoke. "The boat capsized. I was the only one he could save. I was the closest to him. Mother and Rod drowned." She shut her eyes with a little gasp against the old horror, still so sharp in her heart, like a big ugly needle stuck there to remind her she had no right to be alive. "All my life I've felt as if I killed them. He says I did. He hates me because I'm not his son. He hates me because I'm not my own mother, his wife." Jack seemed completely sober for a minute, staring at her with his brows knit. She put her head down and cried quietly. "That's all," she said. "I can't tell you any more." "You don't need to," he said softly. "Jesus." She took a deep breath and sat up, feeling as if she had lightened the weight of that leaden secret by sharing it. She was somewhat surprised to find that she was able to share it. She felt very close to Jack, as if they were now truly friends. Each of them had risked a little of himself to the other, and neither, now, was sorry. With a sigh, she looked at her watch. It was getting late. "I have to get up early," she said, her voice still unsteady. So do you. I know, Burr's always yelling about the hours. Let's go. One more, he said, holding up his glass. I'm not quite through with you yet. I don't get it, Laura said to him. We don't even know each other. This is the second time we've seen each other. And here we are talking like old friends. You're wrong, Laura. We know each other a lot better than some people who have been acquainted for years. Like Burr and Marcy, we know each other instinctively. Don't you feel that? I wouldn't have called you otherwise. You wouldn't have let me drag you out tonight otherwise. Don't talk about Marcy as if she didn't have a brain in her head, Laura said. Jack smiled. You are in love, he said. This is serious. She has a few brains, Mother. She just doesn't use them. She's not stupid. Laura defended her eagerly. She's not sacred either. I didn't mean that. Oh, yes you did. I thought Burr was once. Burr? Laura stared at him. Were you? Nuts for Burr. Yes, once, when I first met him. What happened? Nothing. Thank God. I got over it. I go for big virile sons of bitches, just like Marcy. But I take care not to room with them anymore. Laura shook her head, a wry little smile on her face. Don't you ever fall for the gay ones? I try to make a point of it. He grinned sadly. Unfortunately, I sometimes miss the point, if you know what I mean. I'm not sure. It's just as well. I met Burr at work when he was hired about 4 years ago. I knew he was straight. What's straight? Everything that's not gay, so I pussyfooted around the issue. I made him like me. I did his homework for him. I made him laugh. I told him what to tell the boss. I double dated with him, and Marcy and I was an usher at the wedding. I was #1 troubleshooter after the wedding. He thinks I'm indispensable. But you don't still. No, I don't. Not anymore. But I still like to be with him. I like to watch them fight. He smiled at her. You do too. She felt embarrassed, as if he were looking through her clothes to her naked feelings. However, he went on. I'm not under any lovely illusions about him being an intellectual giant. Or Marcy either. And I know damn well he won't give me a tumble if I just stick around long enough. He gave her a piercing look. Those are your illusions, Mother, he said. I suggest you drown them. What does that mean? You can set Marcy's hair till the moon turns blue and she's not going to crawl into your bed to thank you for it. I don't expect her to. Sure you do. It's a mark of our breed. We're hopeless optimists. Otherwise, we'd all commit suicide. We get a crush on somebody, and if he's straight, we figure we'll just love him so much he'll have to turn gay. It doesn't work that way. Marcy isn't going to start kissing you just because you want her to. Laura was incensed. She already has, she snapped. Jack's eyebrows went up. One, he said. The night we got back from the cellar. She said she felt funny in there with all those girls staring at her. She said she used to touch tongues with a girl when she was in her teens, and she wanted to do it again. And she did. She didn't know what to call him. You had to call me up right in the middle, just when I thought. She stopped herself. Oh, this isn't like me, she moaned. I never talk like this. Only to yourself, HM? He laughed. I mess up your daydreams and your affair. God, what more can I do? I'm becoming the man in your life, Mother. His laughter fizzled slowly, and Laura could tell he was quite drunk from the way he let his head hang for a minute. You know, he said and wagged a finger at her, articulating cautiously, I never have trouble thinking when I'm drunk, but my tongue gets sloppy. He laughed a little. I say what I want to say. That's one good thing, but it sounds sloppy as hell. He finished the drink in front of him. Laura started to get up, but he caught her wrist and said, suddenly very serious again, You're in trouble, Laura. Marcy's straight. Accept that. It's a fact. If she's playing games with you, she's doing it for private kicks, not to give you a thrill. And her kicks have nothing to do with being gay. They have to do with going out on a limb, with acting nuts once in a while. Maybe she's just pushing you out on a limb to see if you'll fall off. And you'll fall all right, flat on your can. He stopped for a minute to focus his gaze on her. Marcy's about as queer as post toasties, Laura. Take my advice, move out. But I can't, I won't, she exclaimed defensively. Why should I? I've done nothing wrong. I hadn't either when Joe gave me the glad news. I'm not you. I've done nothing I'm ashamed of. No, but you will. If you hang around, feeling like you feel, you were saved by a phone call Friday night. What if my timing isn't so good next time? I don't want to move out. She said it stubbornly like a thwarted child. All the more reason why you should. Laura got indignant. I've got more willpower than you give me credit for, and I'm not going to be scared out. What are you going to do for willpower if she gets cold some night and crawls into your bed to keep warm? Or you take a shower together? Or she feels like pulling your nerves out by the roots one by one again, and makes you play Let's Touch Tongues just for the hell of it, just to see if she can get you sent up for sodomy. Be thankful you're female, mother. At least your passion won't stand up and salute her. I've had enough from you tonight. Okay, but I advise you to find a nice butch somewhere and set up housekeeping in the village, or at least cultivate a few lovelies down there so you'll have a place to let off steam when Marcy feels like playing games. You're drunk and repulsive. I know what I am, Laura. Don't change the subject. I'm going home. I'm coming with you. He got up unsteadily and followed her toward the door. Outside he stopped her. Don't hate me, Laura, he said. And she couldn't, looking at him there in the pink glare of neon, short and plain, brilliant and miserable, offering her his curious stinging sympathy. I wish I could, she said and shook her head. He smiled at her. I'll walk you home, he said. You don't need to. Why don't you get a taxi and get yourself home? Are you suggesting I can't walk? No, she laughed. You are. Just for that I'm going to walk you home whether you like it or not. To prove I can. All right. But she had to lead him most of the way. Jack could talk better than he could navigate when he was high. When they reached the apartment, she hailed a cab for him and put him in it. She stood there watching it pull away down West End Avenue, watching it till it was indistinguishable from the sea of red tail lights traveling with it. Chapter 7. It was hard to get up the next day. Not impossible, just hard. Discouraging. Her head ached, and she was dissatisfied with herself. For the first time she wanted to cut work. But she went and she did her job. It wasn't until the middle of the afternoon that she jumped to hear Sarah ask, "What's the matter, Laura?" A little under the weather. Laura looked up at her. "Do I look that bad?" she wondered. "I'm a little tired." "Why?" "The reports are piling up," Sarah said, nodding at them. Laura rubbed her forehead. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I'll catch up. I'll work late." "Don't be silly." Sarah laughed good-naturedly. "Catch up tomorrow. There's not that much of a rush." But the next day she didn't quite catch up. She got farther behind, in fact. Burr and Marcy had kept her up. It was partly the quarrel, and partly the torturing silence, that followed it. She went to work still more tired than the day before. Dr. Carstens came in to tell her a story about one of his woman patients, and she was frankly irritated. He picked himself up from her desk, where he was sitting, and huffed out, offended. "Okay, don't laugh," he said. The others thought it was funny. Laura drove herself almost crazy with her errors that afternoon. When her phone rang, she jumped half out of her chair. It was Jack. "Good afternoon, Mother," he said. "I'm selling used toothbrushes. Interested?" "No, I'm very busy." "Goodbye. I'll see you at 8. No, 8:15. No, 8:30. All right, all right, all right. Goodbye." She slammed the receiver down and Sarah stared at her. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Laura decided to work late, and it was close to 8:30 when she got up to go. The reports, though fewer, "We're still not done." At the elevator, the boy said, "Nice evening." "Is it?" She answered him apathetically, involved in her own world. "Yes, ma'am. It's really spring tonight." He smiled at her. He was right. The air was soft and gentle, lavender and clear. It evening smelled good, right there in a mid-Manhattan, although that was probably an hallucination. Laura smiled a little. She hated to go underground to the subway, but it was late, and she wanted to get home in a hurry. It would really be gorgeous out on the roof tonight. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. She walked in to find Jack and Burr playing checkers. Marcy was cross-legged on the floor, in velvet lounging pants and a silk shirt, humming while she covered the top of the round cocktail table with a plastic veneer treated to look like marble. She smiled up at Laura, who paused to admire her. "Alcohol-proof," Marcy said, rattling the table cover. "Mr. Marquardt gave it to me. We're advertising it for a new client, and they passed some around today. It sticks by itself. How do you like it?" "It looks wonderful," Laura said. So did Marcy, her cheeks pink with enthusiasm. "You've had it, man," Burr said, and Laura heard a checker smacking triumphantly over the board in a devastating series of jumps. "Touch, boy. Why don't you take up tiddlywinks?" "I could beat you at tiddlywinks." Jack sat with his elbows on his knees and his chin in his hand. He looked up at Laura without raising his head and smiled. She looked at him, absorbed in the idea that he had once been infatuated with the man beside him, and Burr had never known it. Burr thought he was as normal as himself. But of course, they had never roomed together. Suddenly Laura recalled that she had agreed to go out with Jack. "Jack," she began, but he cut her off. "I see I have less allure than your typewriter," he said. He cocked an eye at her. "Well, never mind. I don't have so many friends I can afford to be jealous of their typewriters." "Thanks, Jack," she said with a little smile. She turned to go into the kitchen, but he jumped up and followed her. "Where the hell do you think you're going?" "Straight to the icebox. I'm starved. We have a date. I'm taking you out to dinner. Why don't we just stay here?" she pleaded. But all he said was no, and she understood that he had made his mind up and had something planned. She was reluctant to leave Marcy, who looked so pretty. But the prettier Marcy looked, the worse Laura suffered. Maybe it would be better just to talk about her tonight. Talk to Jack about her. It sounded good. "Okay, but let's get home early. I'm beat. I really am," she said. "Whatever you say, Mother." He smiled, and she felt suddenly that it was terribly good to have him for a friend. When they got outside, she said, "Let's go over to Hempel's. It's only a block." "No, we're going to the cellar." "Oh, God, no. It's miles away. We wouldn't get home till midnight. A friend of mine wants to meet you." "Who?" The name wouldn't mean anything. It would just scare you away, probably. "She saw you when we were there last week. She likes your face." "Oh, that's ridiculous. Come on, I'm starving. I've got to eat or I'll faint." "This is a very interesting girl. She could teach you a lot." "I know everything I want to know." He laughed, but she went on. "Jack, I'm not going to the village with you." But when they reached Broadway, he hailed a cab, and she let him put her in it, as she knew she would. "I can't. I won't. I'm tired and hungry," she said. But she got in. "I'll fall asleep over my typewriter tomorrow," she moaned. When they reached the cellar, she felt a lift of excitement in spite of herself. They arrived after the kitchen had closed, but Jack was a regular customer, and they were willing to fix him up. They followed a waitress to a table. Laura walked with a strange light queasiness in her stomach, and sat down with Jack feeling terribly self-conscious and looked at, as if every pair of eyes in the room was inspecting her. Jack laughed, waving at somebody. "All my friends'll think I've gone straight," he said. He gave the waitress an order and she scuttled off. He leaned back in his chair to look at Laura then. "Sorry you're here?" he asked. "No, but I wish it was Friday night." "Relax. We'll leave when you say the word." She began to feel adventurous and crazy. Jack went up to get them both a drink. She eyed it with suspicion, but then she picked it up and drank half of it down, and it hit her like a bomb. A big, soft, lovely explosion of warmth in the pit of her stomach. She blinked at Jack, who only smiled, knowing the feeling. "How would you like to be in here some night?" he said slowly, "with Marcy beside you, and sit alone together at that little table over there, and tell her you love her?" Laura took another gulp of the drink and almost finished it. "And hear her say the same thing?" Laura put the glass down with trembling hands. "Oh, Jack, you bastard," she said, her insides aflame. "Cut it out. You want it so badly," he said, "that it's tearing your guts out. And it's never going to happen. So open your eyes. Look around. There are some beautiful women here tonight. There's one as pretty as Marcy." He squinted over her shoulder. Laura turned around indignantly to look, and saw a charming face framed in short brown curls smiling at a table partner. She looked up at the sudden sight of Laura's own face, pale and compelling. "Nobody's as pretty as Marcy," Laura told him. "Somebody was," Jack said, with his peculiar intuition taking him straight to the point. "What do you mean?" Laura said defensively, and finished her drink. "Whenever you know damn well what I mean," he said with a smile. "You ask what do I mean? As if I were nuts. Well, I'm not. Give me your glass." He took it and got up. "Never thought you'd beat me to the bottom, Mother." He peered into it with one eye and then left to get it refilled. Laura leaned back in her seat and shut her eyes. After all, what did it matter if she were here? She felt wonderful. She had put in a terrific day's work. She had a right to a little fling. Her body glowed through its whole length. Marcy loomed in her mind like a lovely apparition, not quite real. "I'll have her someday," Laura thought. "No matter what he says." She looked around her, half-consciously searching for someone. But the girl in the black pants wasn't there. The crowd was much the same as before, but thinner. The artist was walking around with his sketch pad, stopping to talk to tables full of friends. The bar was crowded more than the tables. Jack came back, put a fresh glass in front of her, and sat down. "Now, what was her name?" he said. Laura opened her eyes slowly. "Who?" "Number 1. She wrinkled her nose in some disgust. "Jack, she wasn't a number, or an animal, or part of a collection." "What was she?" "She was a wonderful girl." "Beautiful like Marcy?" "No, beautiful, but not like Marcy. They have some features in common." But B.S. was taller. She was quite boyish. She felt a little embarrassed suddenly, putting it this way. "Marcy's very feminine." "What are you?" Laura stared at him over the rim of her glass. "What am I?" she repeated, confusedly. "Do I have to be anything?" "I don't know. You'll find out fast enough," he said. "B.S. probably taught you a lot. The one who brings you out always does." "Yes, she did," she said dreamily. B.S. had loosened her up wonderfully when they were together. She had taken her by the hand and led her to herself. She had also abandoned her there, but Laura couldn't hold anything against her. That had been a sacred love and always would be in her memory, like all loves that are broken off in full passion. If they had been together till it had worn off a little, Laura may have left her without any desperate regrets and loneliness. She may have been able to see B.S. as a whole person, not as an ideal. But it hadn't happened that way, and B.S. still looked like a goddess to her. Now, in a new world, with new people, she wasn't sure what she was. With Marcy she felt aggressive and violent. Here, in the cellar, with so many eyes on her, she felt timid. Jack grinned at her. "You're a boy," he said. "With Marcy, anyway." "My friend won't like that." Laura put her glass down. "I'm a girl," she said. "Don't look at me that way." Jack put his head back and laughed. "Correction," he said. "You're a girl. Why don't you move down here where you don't have to be either? Everybody has to be one or the other." "You're too literal, Laura. Cut off your hair. Wear those pants you look so nice in. Get some desert boots, a car coat, and some men's shirts, and you're in business. Jack, she said, you are positively revolting. That's the uniform, he said. Can't join the club without it. I don't want to join. Yes, you do. You feel good in pants. You swagger. I do not. But she was laughing at him, at herself. SHHH, he said softly, or they'll cut you off. Here comes dinner. The presence of the waitress made it impossible to talk. She set a delectable dinner in front of Laura, but somehow, after the first few bites, it lost its appeal. She sat gazing at the plate, wondering where her enormous appetite had gone, pushing a mushroom dreamily from one side to the other. Jack smiled, watching her. He leaned over the table on his elbows and picked up her knife. Laura, he said, pointing at her mushroom. Then he pushed another one slowly across the plate from the other side. Marcy, he said, nodding at it. The two mushrooms made contact south of the fried potatoes, and Laura felt crazy watching it. It made her smile. She thought it was ridiculous. It made her want to laugh, and it brought a warm, unwanted, urgent feeling up in her legs at the same time. She pushed Laura behind the steak. Ah, said Jack. Laura's afraid of Marcy, but Marcy's not afraid of anything. Marcy's a little heller. Here she comes. And he pushed his mushroom after hers. Laura felt her cheeks get hot. I'm not going to run away, she said, and took a large swallow from her drink, letting Laura stay put. Okay, be a hero, said Jack. Make it easy for her. Look at that little bitch. And he scooped Marcy over Laura, back and forth, the passage facilitated by the gravy. She's nuts. She's on a kick. She wants you to make a fool of yourself. Laura wouldn't watch. She finished her drink for an excuse not to look. But look at Laura, Jack went on. She can't stand it. Where Marcy goes, Laura goes. And he pushed Marcy and Laura around the plate together. Stop it, Jack. Get me another drink. Here's where Laura goes crazy. Now stop it. He crammed the two mushrooms into the potatoes, helter-skelter, one over the other. Laura got what she wanted, he said, after a minute, looking up at her briefly. But see what happens to her. And with one sudden cruel stroke he sliced Laura in half. Laura gave a little start. Marcy got bored with the game, he explained. Laura laughed nervously. Now cut it out and get me a drink, she said. He got up smiling, without a word, and went to the bar. Laura couldn't look at the plate. She signaled the waitress, who came over with a water pitcher. Will you take this out, please? Something wrong with it? I can't eat mushrooms. Well, why didn't you say so? She took the plate with an angry, geez, muttered under her breath. Jack came back to find her laughing. Couldn't take it, HM? He nodded at the vacant space where the plate was and then looked at Laura. Want to leave? No, I don't want to go anywhere, Jack. Let's just sit here a while and talk. About Marcy? About Marcy. She laughed again. By Jesus, you're a pretty girl, he said quietly. I didn't realize it till now. You ought to get soused more often. I'm not soused. I'm in love. He gave a snort of disbelief. Okay, not soused and in love. You're headed straight blind for misery. You know that. My eyes are wide open. She'll never love me. Don't tell me. Tell yourself. Believe yourself. I do. He shook his head and laughed a little. I see it coming, and I tell you look out. She's murder, and you say you're absolutely right, and then off you go to slit your own throat. He leaned over the table seriously. Leave her, Laura, he pleaded, and took her by surprise with his earnestness. It's no good falling for a straight one. Believe me, I won't leave her, she said stubbornly. I know what I'm doing. He leaned back with a sigh. Then at least look at somebody else, he said. Look at Bebo. She's cruising you like mad. Who's Bebo? I wouldn't look at anybody with such a ridiculous name. What's cruising? Bebo's a friend of mine. And cruising, well, you'll catch on. He grinned. Laura turned warily around. At the bar sat the handsome boyish girl she had admired the week before. She was gazing boldly, but without great interest, at Laura. When Laura turned to see her, she smiled, very slightly. Laura turned back to Jack. "Is that Bebo?" she asked. "In the black pants?" Jack laughed at her. "You mean tan shorts?" Laura looked again. "Well, she had on black pants last time." "Did she?" He grinned. "She says you had on a blue dress with a white collar." "You did, too. I remember it. She liked it." Laura stared at him and then got indignant. "What's she doing, remembering my clothes like that?" "That's silly. So are you. You noticed hers." Oh, damn. She followed us into the John." "I know. She talked to me before she went after you. I told you, Mother. She likes your face. She likes Marcy's. That's why she followed us," she snapped. He shook his head. "No." "How do you know?" Laura flared, the jealousy working in her. "I know Bebo," he chuckled. Laura was getting curious. She finished her drink in 3 big swallows, which made Jack laugh. "Is she a friend of yours?" she said. He shrugged. "More or less. I keep running into her at parties. For years we ran into each other before we finally got acquainted. I like her. She's a hellion, but I like her. She's a cynic like me." "What a pity." Laura feigned unconcern, running a wet finger around the edge of her glass. "She looks like BS, she said. "A little." Jack blew smoke through his nostrils from a freshly lighted cigarette. "That means you like her," he said. Laura refused to honor such nonsense with an answer. She was rather drunk now. She turned again to look at Bebo. Bebo was still gazing at her, and she winked, with that faint private smile still on her face. Laura turned quickly back to Jack. "Is she coming over?" she said, feeling slightly elated. Jack was grinning past her at Bebo and nodding. At her words he glanced at her. "No," he said. "She's an uppity bitch." Laura was disappointed. "Another drink?" "One more. That's all." "What time is it?" 11:30. "No." She tried to collect her thoughts, to write her time sense, while Jack fetched the drinks. When he came back she said, "How many drinks have I had?" "Jesus, Mother, what a thing to ask a man. I can't even keep track of my own." "I'm lost," she said. "I've lost count." Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. "Shall we take off, Mother mine?" Jack said, very carefully. Laura tried to clear her head by shaking it and pressing her eyes shut. "I guess we'd better," she said. "I guess we have to. It's 4 o'clock. They're closing." 4. Laura came half awake at this. 4 o'clock, he repeated elaborately. "Oh, God. Oh, my head." "Never mind, Mother. You can stay with me tonight. I'll try to keep my hands off you." He laughed to himself. Laura saw Jack looking up at somebody with a grin and heard him say, "Hi, doll. I want you to meet my mother. Mother, look alive." He squinted at her doubtfully. "If possible," he added. Laura looked up and saw a startlingly handsome face gazing down at her. Black hair, pure blue eyes, a slight smile that widened a little when Laura turned her face up. "Hello," Bebo said. "Laura." Her smile gave emphasis to the way she said Laura's name. Laura put her hands to her head dizzily. "You look just like BS, she murmured, at which Bebo grinned, turning to Jack. "3 aspirins and some warm tomato juice," she said. "First thing when she gets up. She'll live." Laura watched her, fascinated, half smiling. Bebo turned back to her and returned the smile. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a dime. She flipped it in the air and then dropped it insolently in front of Laura. "Here's a dime, sweetheart," she said. "Call me sometime." And with a little grin at Jack, she turned and left them. Laura stuck her chin out indignantly. She was not too drunk to be insulted. "Well, thanks a bunch, Your Majesty," she said sarcastically to Bebo's back. She could hear Bebo laughing, but she wouldn't turn around. She was already headed for the door. Laura let Jack drag her to his apartment, 3 blocks away. He took her up a few stone steps into a long, dim hall and opened the first door on the left. He steered her to his bed and pushed her till she collapsed backwards on it. She fell asleep at once. Jack pulled her shoes off and her skirt, with total unconcern for her femininity, and got her under the covers. Laura slept like a stone, a deep, almost motionless sleep that could have lasted far into the next day. But Jack got her up at 7:30. She had 3.5 hours sleep, on virtually no dinner and 8 or 10 stiff drinks. She felt strange new pains all over. Jack was used to such excesses. Though he tried to ration himself to 1 or 2 a week, he took it pretty well in stride, but Laura felt awful. Her first words when Jack shook her were, "Oh, God, what time is it?" 7:30. She turned over on her stomach and put her head down on the pillow. "Where's Marcy?" "At home. Where else?" "What time is it?" "Oh, I asked you that. My head hurts." "Take these, Mother," he said, handing her some aspirin and a glass of water. "I don't think I can swallow." "That's a chance you'll have to take. Here we go." He popped the pills into her mouth and gave her the water. She gulped them convulsively. "That'll see you through till," he looked at his watch, "about noon. After that, take 3 more and a no-dose tablet, and hit the sack tonight about 6. It's Friday. You can sleep for 2 days. I will, too." She rolled gingerly to a sitting position and looked at Jack with aching eyes. "You did this to me," she said mournfully. "Be fair, Mother. I said I'd go whenever you wanted to. I kept asking and you kept saying no." She stared at him, disbelieving. "Jack, you louse. You should have dragged me out. You knew what's that?" There was a dime on the bed table. Jack grinned at her. "Bebo's calling card," he said. Laura remembered it in a flash, although the rest of the evening was little more than a blur. She picked it up and threw it angrily across the room. "Give it back to her for me," she said. "All I remember about last night is that awful girl and those awful mushrooms."